This is Confederate History and Heritage Month, as April is of every year. It's a struggle to keep it that way because of so much federal propaganda about the war. We had a war between the states because Southerners did not like being controlled by principles with which were inconsistent with the original Constitution. The original Constitution was based on principles that the states allowed the federal government to have certain rights and responsibilities, but that was the extent of the rights and responsibilities of the federal government. The southern states realized when Abraham Lincoln was elected that the northern politicians were not going to honor the Constitution and were going to impose any types of mandates they wanted to, which primarily meant the exploitation of the more economically advanced South than the northern industrialists. Fact of the matter was, the South generated a tremendous amount of money through agriculture at that time. The northern industrialists were highly dependent upon the South to produce cotton. They built textile mills out the yin-yang in the north, depending on that cotton. But when the South entertained the idea of getting out of the Union, they were very concerned in the North. Abraham Lincoln said he didn't care if slavery existed or not, one way or the other. That's not an issue in his mind. But the big issue is, I do not want the southern states to secede. And if they do, I will wage war and commandeer them back into the Union. They will not be a free people anymore. And that's exactly what he pursued and did. People say, historians, Yankee historians say, well, the South started the war. They fired a shot at Fort Sumter. Now, Fort Sumter was South Carolina territory, which was Confederate territory. Okay. After secession of South Carolina, Abraham Lincoln moved troops into Fort Sumter and created an agitation. He wanted to start a war. Okay, then he said, well, Charleston folks are not taking good enough care of our troops there, and I need to send in supply ships. He did not send in supply ships. He sent in war military ships. In defiance, the South fired a shot. Yes. But no one was hurt. No blood was spilled. But Abraham Lincoln was delighted because he could blame the war on the South at that point. No blood shed there. The first blood shed was due to Abraham Lincoln started drafting people. Okay. Once he declared war against the South, which was unconstitutional because the Congress did not do it. But he blockaded the South so that the South, the seas, they could not receive anything. He wanted to starve Southerners to death. Okay? With this starving mechanism and his first moves in the war in 1861 was to conscript or draft people into the army. And he sent them into Missouri, he sent them into Kentucky, he sent them into Maryland, particularly Maryland because Maryland was adjacent to Washington, D.C. Okay. He started commandeering property and people in those. It was a war against the people, as far as Abraham Lincoln was concerned. The first blood shed in the war was in Maryland. Baltimore, Maryland. Now, I've done a lot of work in Baltimore, Maryland, and friends there, and they think they're Yankees. But Baltimore, well, Maryland was a slave state. The legislature of Maryland wanted to secede from the Union and fight with the South. But Abraham Lincoln sent troops in there to curtail this movement immediately. He got the majority of the legislature in Maryland, corralled them, and threw them in prison with no charges at all, but kept them there so they could not vote to secede. Simple as that. That's good. Now, the South doesn't like this kind of business, and the South believes in states having certain 10th Amendment rights when the U.S. Constitution does not specifically give the United States authority in an issue. That issue, that right, belongs to the states. Abraham Lincoln and his radical Republicans did not honor that at all. We had a war. We were outnumbered, and we were subdued. But April is Confederate History and Heritage Day. And I will love the South forever, and I will not appreciate the United States for what it did. In furtherance of the tragedy that the United States imposed upon the South, they start lying about history, rewriting the markers at the historic points in America to show that they were the righteous people, and they were not. They were dirty dogs that came down and raped the South. Now, I'll say all this to lead up to this particular song that I love very much. And it's about a Southern couple during war times. And you can multiply this song times thousands, hundreds of thousands of Confederate soldiers that lost their life. And this just covers a small part of that inhumane war. But it happened. I'll never forget it because I know too much about it. you're better off not knowing anything about it, and then you'll be happy with this country. But if you want to read enough to know about your ancestry, if you're a Southerner, and there are 70 million of us, and I guarantee you 80% of them don't know the real story. This song that I'm about to do is about a love affair between a couple, and the guy has to go off. Excuse me. The war started in 1861. That's when Abraham Lincoln invaded the South with all of his federal troops. Now, the South had a population, but that was it. Abraham Lincoln blockaded all the ports in the South, and there were no immigrants coming in. Immigrants came in by northern ships to New York, Rhode Island, up in that area. Okay. He told them, you get off this boat, either you give me $300 or you're going into the Army. That's the way it was. In 1863, Yankees got tired of this situation and created a rout in Washington, D.C. Lincoln just sent in troops and mowed them down the streets, 2,000 or 3,000 civilians. Didn't want to fight. Didn't want to kill the South. But Lincoln didn't care. Radical Republicans did not care. They wanted Southern property. That's all they wanted. This song is about a couple, and there are thousands of these stories, hundreds of thousands of these stories. And this is about the war started in 1861, and then 1862, the South was being very infiltrated by Yankee soldiers. And they were sent down here to kill and burn and destroy everything. So if you were a Southern boy of any age, 30, 40, 50, fighting capability, you took up arms to defend your property and your family. But we didn't have enough people to do that. And this is a story about a guy that joined the Confederacy in 1862, and he fought his heart out and wound up in Franklin, Tennessee in 1864 and didn't make it. Boy, when I first initiated this commentary, I only intended to introduce the song and have a brief commemoration of Confederate History and Heritage Month. I would like to go back in my commentary and make a correction. I had no script that I was working with here, and I just started talking and rambling, and that's all the history that's in my head. I've just got a lot of history in my head. But I made one thing that was inaccurate, one comment that was inaccurate, and I don't know why. I know it's not. They even made a movie about it, so a lot of people know the correct that. I made the mistake of saying that there was a draft riot in Washington, D.C. It was not Washington, D.C., it was New York City. And like I say, they made a movie about it. But the point was, and they didn't illustrate this real well in the movie, but you had 2,000 or 3,000 people rioting and complaining about the war between the states and not wanting to fight in it. and the way Abraham Lincoln worked things out with civilians. Now, these are Yankee civilians in New York City. He brings in troops and mows them down the street, shuts them up in a hurry. Now, if you were a northern newspaper editor and you wrote something against what Abraham Lincoln was doing, he'd put you in prison. Shut down your newspaper and put you in prison. Now, if you were a southerner, he would have his emissaries down there in the South just go ahead and kill you right there on the spot. If you wouldn't sign a loyalty agreement to the United States, and that's why I shudder every time somebody wants me to pledge allegiance. I think back to those days and what went on, and it was horrible. I would like to add another comment, too. We talked about economic matters being a problem in the war. If you go back to that period in time, the United States was very young. They derived most federal revenue from tariffs on imports. That's why Fort Sumter was so important, because it was kind of a crow's nest view of every ship coming into Charleston. Charleston got a lot of shipments of impound stuff, and it was a federal regulation point so that they could be sure and collect their tariffs. Every time Lincoln got in a conversation with a Southerner before the war started, he said, "But what about my tariffs? What about my tariffs if you leave this country?" That's all he was interested in, protecting his tariffs. And the problem that the South had with it is all of that tariff money was spent on infrastructure in the North, not the South. So with that being said, here we are with Showtime. This song is very dear. It means a lot to me. Was on fire, and so was she the night he left her. Left her there to bear her pain alone, hoping soon to return. Burn, Georgia, burn. Of the guns feel the emptiness inside her, where once she felt the pounding of her heart when he held her in his arms. Tenderness they learn. Burn, Georgia, burn. He was the body, she was the soul of a love affair they couldn't control. While the world was falling down around them, they were not concerned. Burn, Georgia, burn. Winter brought the snow and a rider down from Franklin with news of how the war had taken toll, and he would not return. Burn, Georgia, burn. He was the body, she was the soul of a love affair they couldn't control, while her world crumbled all around her. She was not concerned. Burn, Georgia, burn. While strolling through her mind, she stumbled on an old familiar feeling. How he touched her many years ago.